104.5 The Team, joined by Mike Rodak. He covers the Buffalo Bills for ESPN. Good friend of the show as well. Mike, what's the latest on Lesean McCoy?
Well, we're still waiting on the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office to decide on any possible charges. So the case, the investigation into the case was completed by the police on Tuesday, and they turned it over to the DA's office, Tuesday afternoon. And really now it's in the hands of the DA's charging unit is what it's called, and they decide on whether there's going to be any charges and who exactly will be charged and what the charges will be. So there's really no timetable provided by them on when that might happen. I mean, there's certainly been reports that arrest warrants are imminent. That was, Monday night, and, there's still the possibility that those come out on Wednesday. But we'll see, exactly when the decision's made because, right now there's been no decision on charges yet.
Are we in a position where McCoy could face suspension from the league? If it's as bad as it sounds like it could be, could he even be cut by the Bills?
I would leave open both of those possibilities at this moment. I don't think either of those are something that can be ruled out. Right now, we need to see A, what the charges are, and B, how the legal process plays out. This isn't like a player being arrested in the middle of the season or having some sort of legal issue in the middle of the season where the NFL has to make a quick decision. As they've seen, last season, there's use of the exempt list, and they would just put players on the commissioner's exempt list and essentially suspend them without suspending them and get them away from the team. But there's no urgency or need to do that right now because players aren't around the team, and they can't be around the team until mid-April. Third week of April is when voluntary workouts start, and even then, there's nothing mandatory until minicamp in June. And so there's really no reason for the NFL to act right now. And I wouldn't expect the NFL to act right now. And unless there's some, heinous, really incriminating detail that comes out with Shady, then I don't think the Bills will act right now either. If you look back at the Marcel Darius case 2 years ago, they waited until the NFL made their decision. And that ended up being a full year later. You remember he was arrested twice in the 2014 offseason. He had eventually had his case resolved in the spring of 2015, and then the NFL suspended him one game at the start of the 2015 season. So this could take a while. And unless, the Bills really feel pressured to get rid of him right away, I don't think they'll do anything. But down the road, I would certainly leave open both of those possibilities.
Mike Rodak covers the Bills for ESPN. Now, with the emergence of Carlos Williams, and now this is the second straight offseason with some kind of annoyance from Lesean McCoy. I mean, what is do you hear anything from what the team thinks of him as a player?
As a player, I think they value him, and he might be the most important player on the team. When you look at the way they run their offense, it's ground and pound. It's a run-first offense. They had the second most rushes last year, the most rushing yards, best rushing average, and that's obviously a result of both him and Carlos Williams and Mike Gillislee, but he's still the number one back. I mean, Carlos Williams had some good games last season. Mike Gillislee had some good games last season, but if Lesean McCoy was healthy, he was the lead back. I don't think there's ever really, dispute about that, and I think Rex Ryan really likes the way he plays. I think the Bills still feel like he's a very talented player, and he's been one of the most productive backs in the NFL the last few years. So that's really where he is. And, I mean, if it ever came to it, yeah, you could probably get by with Carlos Williams and Mike Gillislee, but it's far from ideal. I think you do want Lesean McCoy in that backfield, and that's how they think of him as a player. But, yeah, I mean, there's been some off-field stuff. I don't think the party invitation last year was a huge deal to the team. I think they were annoyed that, their logo was used in an invitation. But beyond that, I don't think it really made too many waves. It's more with him. He's a big personality. He'll say some things that, I don't think the team necessarily wants him to say. Like when he was talking about his hamstring injury week 3 or week 4, kind of giving the details of how it happened and how he re-injured it, and the exact, it was a grade 3 or whatever hamstring pull. I don't think they wanted him saying that. And in fact, at the end of the season, when he hurt his knee, he said that he had agreement with the staff not to talk about injury. So I think it's more of those things that annoy the team. I don't think it's really was the party invitation last offseason. obviously this will have a bigger impact, but I don't think there's a string of events with him where the team is getting to a point where they're fed up. I don't think that's true.
Mike, CBS Sports Today said that the Bills were in among the worst positions of any team heading into the offseason with regards to the salary cap, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's Mario Williams. Just how bad is it for the Bills? It's
pretty bad. I mean, it's in modern NFL terms, it's bad. 10 years ago, they could have been in a worse spot. The salary cap was a lot lower 10 years ago. Teams got in salary cap trouble a lot more often. So you don't see this as much around in the NFL. There's only 2 or 3 teams right now that are over the cap, and the Bills are one of them, the 2016 cap. And they're only over by about $3 or $4 million. And, obviously the Mario Williams release is going to clear up about $12 million in space. Then you have potential restructure Charles Clay, which is another $7 million or so. So you're talking close to $20 million you can clear pretty quickly once the league year starts. And then, potentially other cuts. Dan Carpenter might be one. Leotis McKelvin might take a pay cut. There's other things you can do. So you're talking 20, 25 million in space you can clear, but you do have, like you said, 2 big-name free agents along your offensive line. Cordy Glenn, your left tackle, played very well last season. Richie Incognito, left guard, is, of course, a Pro Bowler last season. And between those 2 guys, it depends on how they structure the contracts, but you're looking at north of $10 million this season, I would say, to retain both of those. So there goes essentially half of the cap space you just created, and then the rest of the cap space, you're still looking at Nigel Bradham at linebacker, you're looking at signing draft picks, practice squad, injured reserve. There's a lot of sort of reserve pools you need to keep open in your salary cap. So that space will go away very quickly, or at least will be set aside very quickly. So there's really nothing the Bills can do in free agency that would be splashy or anything close to what they did last season. And that's the limitation of where they're at right now with the cap. It's not dire in the sense that they need to cut half their roster, to clear space. That very rarely happens in the NFL anymore. But it's certainly, they're in a position where they need to cut a veteran, and an accomplished veteran in Mario Williams, for instance, just to get under the cap. And that's never a good thing.
How much do you think Mario Williams has left? Like, if he gets cut, he jumps onto another team and makes an impact?
Yeah, I think he does. I don't think we should write off Mario Williams quite yet. He hasn't played as well, I would say, over the last year, maybe the last 2 years, as he did, I think, early in his career. The player that they signed from the Texans was an all-pro player. I don't think he's quite been on that level last season, like I said. But that could very well be an aberration. I think you look at him in a 4-3 scheme where he can just do what he wants to do on the edge of the line, and that's get after the passer. In fact, that's what he told our Josian Anderson, that he told Dennis Thurman, defensive coordinator, that he wanted to do, is just get after the passer this season. Then I think he can thrive in a scheme. He's only 30, 31. I'd have to double-check his age there. But you're still looking at a physical freak almost. He's 6'6" and 290 pounds, and he looks the part in the locker room when you see him. He's not out of shape by any means. So this is a guy who can still move around out there, and his physical abilities, I think, will keep him playing for a while. So I don't think he's going to get a deal where he's getting paid $20 million again. I think a team would be silly to do that anyway. But he's certainly looking at a decent payday from a team as soon as he's released from the Bills here.
ESPN's Buffalo Bills reporter and a whole lot more, Mike Rodak. Follow him on Twitter at Mike Rodak, right here on 104.5 The Team. The Tyrod Taylor deal. Now, we've heard Doug Whaley say, hey, we will look at quarterbacks possibly in the draft. His contract is structured in such a way that he could become a full franchise paid kind of guy. Where do we stand with him right now?
Yeah, well, his contract will officially end after this upcoming season, Tyrod Taylor's contract, because he played in at least half of the snaps this past season, 2015 season, his third year of his deal void. So he'll be a free agent after this season. And it's at a point right now where I think his agent would like a long-term deal to get done. That's certainly true. I don't think the Bills share that same urgency. I think they're encouraged by what he's done. But anybody who watched the Bills last season could see that there were certainly some limitations to Tyrod Taylor as a quarterback. And, the thing that the Bills have pointed to is the late game comebacks. And I think that's certainly true. He was 1-5 in situations where he was trailing by 7 points in the fourth quarter and had the ball. And his stats in those situations were actually among the poorest in the league when he was down in the fourth quarter and trying to come back. So, you just never really got the sense last season that he was, like a younger quarterback who was really going to come into his own right away. I think there was still some questions there. Now, he was still better than E.J. Manuel. He was better than Kyle Orton. He was better than a lot of what the Bills have put out in the field, last 10, 15 years at quarterback. But I don't think you want to hand over a long-term deal. And so I don't think the Bills right now are in a spot where they're going to go very far on a deal. Maybe they do something short-term, kind of bridge the gap, a one-year extension that, a reasonable amount of money, I think would be something that might be more interested in. But I want to expect them to break the bank and give this guy an $80 million extension, within the next couple of months. I don't think that makes sense based on what we saw in the field last season.
Mike Rodak from ESPN, he covers the Bills. Are you excited or scared to have both Ryan brothers on your beat this year?
I'm going to go with excited. I think it's fun as a reporter to have personalities and guys who aren't afraid to talk. We complain a lot when guys don't talk to us. I mean, look at the Cam Newton press conference and some of his answers there and the criticism he got. So when you have a guy that kind of stands in front of the room or stands in front of a microphone and kind of says whatever he wants, that's fun. That's a fun thing to cover. So it's going to be interesting to see how Rob and Rex interact both on the field and with the media. I'm sure there'll be some fun moments coming up this season, and that's a good part of the job. As far as what the Bills are concerned, I mean, I think they should certainly be scared or concerned, however you want to put it, with what these two guys together might be doing to the defense. I think there's some questions about their recent track record, especially with Rob. And he's not going to be running the defense per se, but he's certainly going to have a hand in what goes on there. So, from a Bills fan perspective, I would be a lot more concerned than I would be as a media member and having the opportunity to talk to these guys and listen to them at the podium.
Mike Rodak, great follow if you're a Bills fan on Twitter, at Mike Rodak. Mike, thanks for the time today, and good luck in Buffalo. Is it snowing there? It's actually finally snowing here.
Yeah, it finally snowed here. It was up in the 40s, 50s, and we had bare grass, and now it's 2 inches of snow from last night. But spring is almost here, right? So
yeah, far cry from last year.
Close.
Far cry from last year when we had you snowed in and we had a complete access to you at any time we wanted.
Yeah, I know, right? God, I didn't leave my house for 4 days, but no, we've been lucky this winter. It's been good.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You got it.